Welcome to Red Light Therapy, a revolutionary technology perfected by NASA to aid in muscle strengthening and recovery. Red and infrared light has the capacity to penetrate deep into the cell's mitochondria, potentially leading to increased energy, faster recovery, and the optimal performance your body demands. Train, fight, recover.
The viewpoint, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc., ownership, management, sponsors, or website.
The storm is now making shore.
The Miami Hurricanes Watch with host Mike McCoy is on. The Watch is mastered by Sean Stanley and Chad Shobe. Time for hardcore Miami Hurricanes talk. Here's your host, Mike McCoy.
How you guys doing? Good. Oh, let me get in the middle of the screen. How about that? What's up, everybody? How you doing? I'm your host, Mike McCoy, and you're listening to or watching the Miami Hurricanes Watch on the 305 Sports Talk Network. And I got a smile on my face. Maybe it's a fake smile. Maybe it's forced. Maybe I just am accustomed to, the transition and the new coaching staff and everything that the players and everything that a year one goes through in a new coaching staff. Maybe that's what it is, or maybe I'm just tired of seeing the same thing over and over again, and I'm not surprised by the outcome. Take your pick. How do you feel? But in any event, happy Tuesday. Here we are, October 11th, and got a pretty good show laid out for you. Switching things up around in the next segment. Normally, we have a former player as a guest. Going to have somebody in the media join us. You'll see who that is when the time comes. But then we got Gabby Urrutia joining us in the final segment. We're going to go ahead and talk some Canes recruiting and talk about where things are in terms of a 3-game losing streak, how this class is holding up, and whatever questions the chat has for Gabby, feel free to put it in there. But for now, let's talk about the issue at hand, which is Miami Hurricanes football. And off to a 2-3 start, 3 losses in a row, Texas A&M, Middle Tennessee State, and then now North Carolina. And this one coming off of a bye week, right? Because that Middle Tennessee State lingered around for a while, had a bye week after that loss, after that embarrassing loss, and then, coming out slow again, which seems to be an issue from Miami that they need to tackle, that they need to rectify, that they need to get right? And so let's talk about the plus minuses in that game. Let's recap that game really quick. Obviously, Miami loses, a heartbreaker. All right. Final score, what was it? It was 20. Oh, man, I had it up here. Let me pull it back up. I'm so sorry. 2-3, 0-1 in the conference. And that final score on Saturday, what was it, 27-24? Yeah, 27-24. And just tough all around, man. Tough all around. And I want to get into the plus and minuses really quick because some of them are repetitive. That's not cool. Some of the minuses are repetitive. The pluses, they're a plus for this week. Will they be a plus for next week? That's one of the issues with a team like Miami. It seems like, it's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You don't know what you're going to get from week to week, and that's frustrating when you don't know what to expect from your team, right? We thought that maybe, okay, Miami has an identity after kind of struggling, looking kind of, playing haphazardly in the first half against Southern Miss. They go into the half, and then they come and run it down, the opposition's throat. We were thinking, okay. Then you go to Texas A&M, have what I call a good loss, whether you want to hear it or not. That's what that was. And Miami did whatever they wanted to do against that defense. Were you guys listening to, and I tweeted about it, the SEC Network had, this little roundtable that they do. I think it was on Saturday evening, or it could have been Sunday at some point, but a bunch of SEC folk were around, and they were talking about, oh my God, Texas A&M's defense is so good. Look how they went into Alabama and did what they did to Alabama. First of all, they did that against a backup quarterback that is very one-dimensional. Yes, Texas A&M has a good quarterback, and a good defense. And the point that I'm trying to make is that they have a good defense because it makes Miami look good, because Miami do whatever the hell they want to do against that offense, right? But kind of pump your brakes at the same time because, again, they did it against a very, very one-dimensional quarterback that Alabama was starting because Bryce Young, he's out. I think he has a shoulder that he's dealing with right now. And on top of that, I think that backup quarterback for Alabama is a redshirt freshman, or maybe a true freshman. I think he's a redshirt freshman. I know he doesn't have much college experience, but the point I'm trying to make is, I was kind of happy to see them making a big deal about A&M's defense, because that's what Miami's capable of. That's what they're capable of. We've seen it. Miami can move the ball. We know what their struggles are. Red zone offense. But we'll get to that when I talk about the minuses. I just wanted to bring that up because it popped into my head. So pluses. Let's rattle them off real quick. Tyler Van Dyke bounced back, right? He bounced back. That's always a plus. Had 2 subpar games, well, 3 subpar games, all right? And, it looks struggling. If you want to count that University of Southern Miss game, he didn't look his best there, but in the 3 losses, he definitely wasn't himself. I'm sorry, in the 2 losses before UNC, he definitely wasn't himself. Bounces back with a career high 96, 97 yards. So that's almost 5 football fields of throwing the ball around the yard. Shouts out to him, right? TVD was a plus. Colby Young, look at that, a receiver. Look at that, a receiver steps up to the plate and does something. Maybe a receiver that nobody really expected to step up to the plate did. But at this point, does it really matter who steps up? Hell no. Colby Young stepped up. The defensive line did a thing. They did a thing. And the defense as a whole in the second half only allowed 6 points in the second half, and they registered 4 sacks in the process. So that was a plus in my opinion. Another plus is, I don't know if you guys listen, we're gonna talk about Gaddis later, and we're gonna get into some clips that I have. But Josh Gaddis in the press conference that there was coaches availability yesterday, he came out and said it. New roles. Gaddis said you're gonna start seeing some new faces, some new roles being increased for some of our players, and that's the approach everyone has to take. And that's a quote. I'll read it again. Quote, you're gonna start seeing some new faces, some new roles being increased for some of our players, and that's the approach everyone has to take, end quote. I love it. That's music to my ears, because how many young guys are there? And you could talk about them, you could mention them in the chat. We could talk about them if you want. How many young guys are you waiting to see? I'm waiting to see all of them, okay? I want to see what they got, because at this point in the season, not that the season's lost, because it's not. Now, if you want to say, oh, Miami's not going to do anything based on what they're looking like, that's you. But the season's not yet lost. The fact of the matter is, Miami still has all of their goals in front of them. As odd as it may seem, as crappy as you think that they're playing, Charlotte is still available for Miami. It is, all right? Whether you want to hear it or not, I'm just stating facts, all right? Then that's what I'm here for. So those are the pluses. Talk about and I'm going to go in depth into the pluses, but just really quick, the minuses: slow start again, the run game, red zone offense, which is a theme nowadays, and the lack of balance. Okay, the lack of balance, and Gaddis talked about that really quick. I'm sorry, in the press conference, and we're going to go over that later. And then again, the poor starts, the slow starts, like I said. But Tyler Van Dyke, it was really good to see him bounce back, mainly because I think the last thing you wanted to see was, and maybe it wouldn't have been a quarterback controversy, because that at the end of the day, they probably were going to go to Jake after, let's say, Van Dyke didn't look himself, or maybe he was sluggish after 2 to 3 series. Maybe they would have pulled the plug. But at that point, when you make that move, that's it. The last thing you want to do is have another N'Kosi Perry, Jared Williams situation and flip-flop. And then, depending on who you talk to, that coaching staff ruined N'Kosi Perry's career because of the inconsistency and the pulling in and out of the lineup and the back and forth. Remember that Virginia Tech game several years ago? It was Bubba Bolden's first start, and Jared Williams threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter. Well, N'Kosi Perry came in and damn near led Miami back to victory. It was a very, very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Commendable effort in terms of coming back. I mean, they rallied big time, and they fell just a little bit short there. DJ Dallas had an incredible run to either go up in the game or maybe have a chance to tie. Just remember, I think it was Bubba Baxter makes like an extra point or something like that. But in any event, that's a plus. The fact that TVD bounced back is a big deal. And I should have had, I'll have it right here. I have it right here. Really quick, if you guys don't remember what his numbers were, 42 of 57 for 496, 3 touchdowns, and that pick, that ugly pick to close the game at the end there. That stunk to see. But, all in all, he was a plus. Colby Young, do I need to say anything else about him? Even though he probably wasn't, not probably wasn't, because Will Mallory was the leading receiver from Miami, 8 receptions, a buck 15, no touchdowns, did have a key drop, but probably the best game that a lot of you have seen him play. But Colby Young comes in, right, out of nowhere, okay, and just, makes it look easy. 3 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown. How did that touchdown come, guys? Have you guys been paying attention to me in the past couple of weeks? Have you guys been paying attention to my tweets? They threw a fade. I think that somebody's listening to the show. Or maybe somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody is saying, hey, there's a lot of talk over there, by some guy over on Twitter. And I don't think I was the only one, but we don't see that. The TVD threw him that fade from, I think it was inside the red zone, so it actually was a red zone touchdown. They were lined up at the 20, might have been the 19. They were maybe just inside the 20, but it was a fade to Colby Young on the left side of the field. He went up and got it like if he was playing a little 5-7 corner. Made it look easy. Why can't that happen more often? Now, I kind of commend Gaddis for trying to switch it up on the goal line and do a little bit more creative. But at the end of the day, I think Miami served best by just using a little bit, spreading, that line, that offense out a little bit more in the goal line, being a little bit more creative. But at the same time, can you doubt him saying, look, I'm going to bring an extra lineman in, Jonathan Dennis. We're going to go heavy with tight ends, 3 tight ends, and Miami still was not able to outmuscle and outman North Carolina. That's discouraging. We started a little bit late, so we're going to extend this segment a little bit. Our guest is probably backstage already, but we'll give him a little bit more time because there's some things I want to go over, and it's already 8:16, but we'll be okay. We got a lot of stuff here, and we'll get to it. But Colby Young was the other part. The defensive line, like I said, especially in the second half, they played lights out. And I want you guys to listen to a clip from Mario Cristobal in yesterday's coach's press conference when he talked about the defensive line, but he talked about Akeem Mesidor in specific. And I want to mention Akeem Mesidor because he's one of those transfers that came in from West Virginia, okay? 6'3", about 270, some odd pounds. And I want you to listen to how Coach describes his play because it's awesome. And it just listen to what he says and tell me what you think about it, maybe in the comments. And here's Coach Cristobal on Akeem Mesidor.
Speaking of portal guys from the defensive line, Akeem Mesidor is having 3rd in the country among edge rushers right now. How has he kind of lived up to what your expectations were entering the season?
Well, I mean, we knew he was an excellent player when he became available. We were all over it, and a little bit to your point, I think Miami needs to be a roster full of players like that produce at that level, right? And that's development, and that's continued work, and that's continued progress within our schemes. We have a lot of guys that are getting better. Certainly, he's one of them that's improving, and through recruiting as well. That's the game. That's the goal. He's a great example for our guys of how to do it and do it the right way. He's been the best part about him is his toughness. If you get a chance, throw on the film and take a real hard and deep dive at how physical he plays and the effort he plays with. And he has been banged up. He's been healthy. He's fought through all of it, and he just keeps going. I mean, that guy is a true warrior, an excellent football player, and even a better person.
Mario, you guys had a lot of recruits, obviously, at the last game, commitments and kids that are interested in the program. Just what's been your message to them, after this kind of tough start on the field, and what are they kind of reciprocating to you?
Oh, our message has never been anything but the truth and honesty. We came here to be a part of what we feel is the best program always for us in the country, and certain things we have to build and certain things we're going to get better at sooner than later. And other things are going to take time, but that all focuses on this season, our players. We certainly
went a little bit over, wanted to get into another clip there, which we'll get into. He started talking about recruiting, and I think it was Manny Navarro that asked him that question. But I think that it's amazing what Coach said about Mesidor because he came out and said, we need a lot more guys like that. That's telling. That means that the roster isn't where it needs to. I mean, we know this, but for him to come out and say that, and then granted, he didn't throw anybody under the bus. He might have thrown – actually, he didn't throw everybody under the bus, but it's just telling for a coach to hear you say we need a lot more guys like that. Because if I'm hearing that, I'm thinking, damn, especially if I'm on, well, any position, doesn't necessarily have to be the defensive line. It could be anybody that's probably not pulling their weight for any unit on the squad. And so I just wanted to bring that up because Mesidor is one of the statistically in the country, right? And I think that the fact that Coach Cristobal was able to snag him from the portal shows the kind of guy that Cristobal is going after and the kind of guy production-wise that we're going to see in the future after Coach Cristobal gets a couple of more cycles under his belt. So, again, I think that's important. And at that same towards the end of the Mesidor portion of the clip there, he started talking about the younger players. And I want you guys to take a listen here. These are one of the pluses, and this is something that Josh Gaddis alluded to about seeing younger players on the field, and you're going to see increased roles, so on and so forth. So I want you guys to hear Coach Cristobal talk about the younger guys that are impressing in practice. And I believe it was Luke Chaney of All Hurricanes that asked the question. So here's Mario on the development of younger players.
You mentioned Jaleel and Wesley. Who are some of the other younger players, such as Jaleel Skinner, who have really started to emerge as you approach the midway point of the season?
Well, I think you mentioned Jaleel right there. He's a guy that continues to get better and better. Great tight end room. Guys like Will Mallory, Don Mammarelli, Elijah Arroyo, they've all done a really good job helping him. Khalil Brantley's done a really, really good job. I like to think that Colby Young is a young guy because he just hasn't played that much, right? Excuse me. I like to think Brashard Smith is another young guy. Only been in for a year plus and is coming on really, really strong. I guess it could go on and on because I know you guys probably view Cam and James as veterans, but they're only sophomores. So thought Leonard Taylor's a guy who really played strong and getting better and changing his body and really committed himself to improvement. So I think guys like that have stood out. And Nez Cooper's going to be a great one. He really is. Trevante was on his way to being really, really good. Well, he got banged up. But we see Flashton Isaiah Horton challenged him this week to be accountable, to be trusted when it comes to game day. So we'll see what type of competitor we get tomorrow on the practice field. And, sure could rattle off a few more.
Listen, those are all names that everybody wants to hear. Everybody from that last class was pretty much mentioned. Colby Young, you heard him rave about Nez Cooper, the 6'6", 350-plus pound offensive lineman. I think he's going to play tackle from Alabama, all right? Rated a 3-star guy, but really doesn't matter. Isaiah Horton has some size on him at receiver, 6'3". Basant has been getting some playing time. You heard him talk about Citizen, who had an injury that's probably going to keep him out, if not the entire year, but a majority of the year. Skinner's been getting some experience. Nigel Kelly, Cyrus Ross. Remember, this is a class that was rated in the 50s, maybe the 60s, before Cristobal took over, and it finished top 15th to be exact. And before we go ahead and take a break and bring on our next guest, or our first guest, I wanted to go back really quick and talk about that a comment that Josh Gaddis made. And I'm not going to have enough time to play the clip. Maybe we'll play it in the third segment. But he made a comment about that, got people a little bit in a tizzy. And I don't understand why. He, when asked about the offense, he was quoted as saying, here it is, "We threw the ball way too much on Saturday." Now I'm thinking, okay, that's not, that's, people were taking that the really, really, really way, a really wrong way that they shouldn't have. And I'll tell you why. It sucks being unbalanced and predictable. Okay. And that's pretty much what Miami was on Saturday. They could have run the ball. And I get it. They could have run the ball and the pass game was working. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You stick to what's working, right? But about his comments, people made it seem as if it was a negative thing. We threw the ball way too much Saturday. That's not how he meant it. I think people taking that out of context, because the people hating that comment, I think they're really confused, because he said that, if you pay attention to things, he said that because they needed to do a better job running the ball and being balanced. That's what Coach Cristobal is all about. That's what he's all about. Who wants to be predictable? You're not going to win anything that way. I don't care if you're magnificent at throwing the ball or running the ball. If you can't do both, you're not going to go far, all right? Passing all the time is a bad thing, because you become predictable. You become easy to defend. So I just wanted to point that out for anybody that had an issue with that quote that Josh Gaddis made yesterday on Monday. And way over my time, I'm going to go ahead and take a break really quick. We'll be right back on the other side with our guest. You're listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch on the 305 Sports Talk Network.
You're listening to the home for hardcore Miami Hurricanes coverage. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
Red Recover now offers a simple-to-use, professional-grade light therapy device designed to help your dog heal and live a healthier life. Red Recover emits red and infrared light therapy based on the same science that NASA developed, all in a soft, flexible housing pad powered by a convenient, rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Say yes to science and give your dog the care it deserves with Red Recover.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
You're locked into the only platform truly dedicated to South Florida sports. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch on the Sports Talk 305 Network. Here's your host, Mike McCoy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us and sticking around with us throughout that last break. You're listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy. And there is the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Fort. Frank, long time no hear. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Mike. Thank you. Before we go any further, I always wondered about that phrase, the man, the myth, and the legend. Can you be all three? If you're a real man, then you're not really a myth.
You're not really a myth.
Right?
You know what, Frank? Thank you. Because I never thought about it that way. I never thought about that. So I'm going to have to reevaluate the next time I use that phrase. But thank you. How's everything going? It's been a long time since I've heard from you.
Yeah, it's going well. You know, we're right in the middle of football season, something
Yes.
we all wait for, we all love, and we all have our ups and downs and disappointments and heartbreaks and good times. So it's definitely a roller coaster.
Tell me about it. Miami fans going through that right now. But for anybody that's not aware, Frank has been holding it down and doing his thing up in the Boca Raton area, and he's been the voice of FAU for quite some time. And so the reason he's on this show is because for those of you that probably don't remember, Frank called a good amount of Miami Hurricanes football games over for Sun Network back in the day in the Butcher Davis era, and saw a transition to one of the greatest teams the greatest team in college football. He was there for that, for the Dan Morgans, the Santana Mosses, the Reggie Waynes. He saw them. He saw the pups grow up, and I'm kind of liking that era to this one. So that's why he's here, and I think it was a good fit. But before that, I just want to ask you really quick, how are things looking over in Owlland?
Well, we've had our share of heartbreak. We're 2-4 going into our homecoming game this weekend. We had a very difficult loss at Purdue. We lost on the road to a Big Ten team by 2 points when we had a lead touchdown in the fourth quarter taken off the board on a misapplication of a rule, a low block rule that was misapplied by the officiating crew. They later apologized, but again, after the fact, there's nothing you can do. We wind up losing by 2. And then last weekend at North Texas, I think Miami fans can maybe relate to this in terms of production by a certain position group. We had 3 balls in the first quarter, touchdowns that were dropped. 2 by receivers, 1 a clear pick 6 by a corner. And then in the fourth quarter, we had another potential touchdown, at least get us in the red zone pass, perfect pass on a deep slant dropped, and we wind up losing that game. But we left 21 points on the board in the first quarter. And, if you're, a group of 5 team and you're not named Cincinnati, if you don't take advantage of those situations, they're not going to come around again. And so so we're 2-4, and we definitely need a win at home this week. We're into conference play. We're 1-1 in the conference.
Okay.
So we'll see how it rolls. And you mentioned N'Kosi Perry in the previous segment. And,
yes.
N'Kosi is 15 touchdowns, passes, 5 interceptions, good ratio.
Yep.
He's added 3 touchdowns on the ground, so 18 total touchdowns is second in Conference USA. His completion percentage probably is a little bit low, but again, that's the guy we saw at Miami. And although I think he's matured as a young man, I think that, the inaccuracies at time still pop up.
Right.
But, he's definitely our QB1. There's no question about that.
He is a guy that many Miami fans were sad to see go, right? But a lot of, and maybe all, I know I am, Miami fans are rooting for him strongly, hard. Like you said, 15-5 on the year in terms of touchdown to interception ratio, 1,512 passing yards, 56.7 completion percentage. But like I said, that comes with, his play. But overall, I think he's a guy that is, a solid quarterback. Like you said, he's doing it on the ground as well with 3 touchdowns, and he has fun playing the game, and that's the reason why I like watching him. Again, former Hurricane, so he's easy to root for. But I just like his story.
Yeah, and you know what? You said 56%, and most fans probably don't realize this, but think about this: over the course of a season, that could be 64%. And you know how?
Catching the ball. 1
more completion per half.
Oh my God.
How much better is 64% than 56%?
Oh yeah, that looks a lot
whether
better.
It's a drop or whether it's a throw that's a little more on target. 1 more completion per half over the course of a season.
Oh my goodness.
And that's the difference between so-so completion percentage and a really good one.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about what. Now, see, when you put that, it's like, come on, guys. Look what you guys are, how the offense can look a lot better, at least its numbers. And I know it's not an individual thing, but sometimes it's just one, Miami would have probably won the game if they would have made one of these catches that they dropped.
Right.
And it's frustrating. It's the little things. And that's kind of a good segue. And by the way, you're listening to 305 Sports Talk Network, Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy and Frank Fort, voice of FAU Owls, but for a long time was calling games over on Sunsport for the University of Miami Hurricanes. Some epic games. Called that UCLA comeback back in the day where Edge was running wild. So I remember that game like it was yesterday.
Just so your listeners and viewers have a time frame, Mike. Back in the day, it was Sports Channel before they went to Fox Sports Sun and Fox Sports Florida.
Right.
So I did the games with first John Congemi for 6 years. We started in 1996.
Wow.
First 6 years with John. Then it was Dave Heffernan, the former offensive tackle I did games with. And we finished up in 2006. So I did those 96 to 06. And those were 10 pretty remarkable years. And I still see some clips from time to time on Twitter that have a bunch of my calls on it.
Yep.
And, man, is that nostalgic?
It is.
You mentioned it. I mean, I saw all those young dudes grow up, and Dan Morgan I've seen a couple times the past couple years. He comes to our pro day at FAU.
Cool.
I see Alonzo Highsmith. When he was working in the NFL, he's now at UM, but he would come to our pro days or our practices. So yeah, I see those guys from time to time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up, and that's an awesome way to segue into kind of what I want to discuss now, because like I said, you saw firsthand when Butch took over and the struggles that he had to endure, whether it be recruiting, whether it be molding young men or convincing guys that probably had other options, but they decided to come to Miami. We're talking about the Ed Reeds of the world, the Reggie Wayne, Santana Moss, some big-time UM names, some of them going on to be the best of their position in the NFL, Hall of Famers, and they came to Miami. They fought it through, and I think it's similar right now because I liken Mario Cristobal, and I know it's early, but there's still some things that I see. I liken him to Butch Davis. Number one, he was here when Butch was coaching, right? Recruited for
Right.
his teams. And then, he learned from some of the best. I consider Butch to be one of the best coaches in Miami history because of what he did. And then he goes on and learns from Nick Saban. So tying it all together, being that you saw that, and Miami's struggling right now, 2-3 on the season, losing to teams that they probably should beat. How can you kind of relate the two? I don't know if you can see Miami is holding it down recruiting wise, right? Mario knows what he wants.
That's the lifeblood. That's where you got to win. Now the transfer portals change things,
right?
But you still have to build your roster with high school kids, the foundation of your roster. Butch, you can say whatever you want after he left about his career, but he had a vision and he convinced those guys, the guys you mentioned, to come to And like 97, that was my second year doing games. And I also did the television show back for back then too. So I did Butch's TV show. And, 97, they went 5-6 and they lost 47-0 at Florida State.
Yeah.
So, that was the valley, and they climbed out of that valley, and it took a couple of years till in 2000, they probably should have been in the national championship game, had the early season loss against Washington, and that, then they went undefeated the next year and the next year until the Fiesta Bowl.
We say that does not treat us well. Yeah.
To say that in hushed tones, but I mean, it was a remarkable building job. And sometimes I look back at those games, when you're broadcasting the game, sometimes you're caught up in the moment.
Right.
And you don't see the big picture. And the amount of talent
oh my God, yeah,
was just, I mean, I remember in 2000, Frank Gore would come in the fourth quarter of blowout games. He was the number 4 running back.
Yeah.
And so the amount of talent was just ridiculous. And, to get to your point, I'm a big Mario fan. I covered him when he was a player. I covered him when he was an assistant coach. And I'm a big Mario fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to get this right. Now, does that mean national championship? Who knows?
Right.
But, he should certainly be in the next couple of years challenging for conference championships. I think he's going to get this right. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. But again, you're talking about how long has it been since Miami was a real player?
Yeah,
right?
The early part of the century.
Okay.
We're not going to count 2017.
And it's 5 games in, you're not going to turn that around. Now, was the Middle Tennessee thing inexcusable? I would say yes. I mean, they're in our league, and they're a mid-level team in our league. And we got to play them, later in the year. But, you shouldn't have that type of performance at home against a mid-level Conference USA team.
Right.
But, again, there's and I think what he said about Messidor is pretty telling. I mean, you said it. I mean, that's a telling comment. So, there's a lot of work to be done. I know Miami fans don't like hearing that. We're all used to being, and I'm still a Miami fan. We all got spoiled.
Right.
But, it's like when FAU had Lane Kiffin, we got spoiled,
yep.
For those 3 years, and see what he's doing at Ole Miss right now.
Right.
So, but it's you got to build it brick by brick.
You got to build it, and like you said,
you can't put up the prefab and hope it stands.
Thank you, and I'm glad you're saying that, because a lot of people, and I was kind of sort of maybe guilty of that myself, kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and just thinking microwave, success and, quick like that. But then I kind of had to pull back. And although Mario inherited a roster that wasn't like, the cupboard wasn't completely bare. Manny Diaz didn't leave the cupboard like, oh my God, what am I coming to work with? But that culture that you spoke of, like you said, it's from early 2000s to now. There's something, there's a stance there, and it's probably worse now than it was in the beginning of the century, that something isn't right. The culture's not there, and that's going to take a while to build.
Well, I always go back to this, Mike, and on the great teams, the players took ownership.
Thank you.
They almost didn't need the coaches to tell them, hey, you got to do this, or you got to do that, or this guy's not practicing hard enough. The players didn't wait for the coaches to do that. They did it themselves. Kevin Patrick is on our staff at FAU. He's our defensive line coach. And he talks all the time about that stuff. It's like, we didn't wait for the coaches to correct something. We did it ourselves. And he talks about he and Rusty Medeiros were, the closest of friends, but these guys would get in fistfights at practice because, somebody wasn't doing the right thing.
Right.
But the best teams are the one where the players are invested and have ownership in the culture of the program. The coach can set it, but if the coach is always having to do the corrections, then that's not good enough.
Right. I'm glad you said that because I'm big and I've taken a lot of heat for it, but I don't care. I mean, it's an opinion that I have. And I think if you ask any coach, because I'm a very players play, coaches coach type of guy, right?
I am too.
And I get it. I'm not saying that players are 100% to blame. I mean, I just don't feel that way. I think coaches, there's part, that coaches have in a game that maybe, that was a questionable call or whatever the case was. But at the end of the day, like you said, Kevin Patrick knows a certain type of way that's how you win. And that's what's missing at Miami, that accountability. That if I have to tell you how to do something that you love, then I think we have a problem. And Bobby Bowden, every time he was asked before he played Miami, coach, what are you doing to get you guys mentally ready for the game? The first thing he'd say is, I don't have to tell them anything because if they don't know the importance of playing Miami, then they shouldn't be here.
Right.
And that's exactly what I like in this situation right now.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we saw it the last couple of years, guys would go out and not make plays that were there and they were starting the next week. And that, that didn't happen in the past.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
That's what accountability is.
So what I'm going to do, and I hate to have done this to you, but first of all, I really have to thank you because I know it was kind of short notice that I'll come on the show, no problem. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much because love hearing your voice, love hearing your stories going, back in the day from 96 to 06 and how you talk about the team. You're a great storyteller and I appreciate that. But I do have another guest in this segment. So the next time, hopefully it's not the last time, the next time that we come on the show, I'll make sure that we get you back on time.
All right. Well, if I could real quick, Mike,
yes,
I know I'm talking to mostly Miami fans, but if you want to check out Mccoys' progress and what's going on.
Yes.
FAU Thursday mornings and Saturday mornings, 11:30 a.m. on Valley Sports Florida, inside the Owlsboro TV show.
Thank you for that. And you heard him there from the voice of the FAU Owls. And do us a solid and go ahead and put one in for Middle Tennessee State. Go ahead and hang 50 on from Miami fans, please.
Well, that's probably going to – they're all important from here on out for FAU. So that's going to be an important one for us on the road in beautiful Murfreesboro.
There you go. We'll keep in touch. I'll give you a text after the show. Please stay safe, and thank you so much for your time.
All right. You got it, Mike. Anytime.
All right, guys. All right. Guys, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll be right back on the other side. You're listening to Mike McCoy on the 305 Sports Talk Network. This is Miami Hurricane Watch. We'll be back.
You're listening to the home for hardcore Miami Hurricanes coverage. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch with Mike McCoy on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
Red Recover now offers a simple-to-use, professional-grade light therapy device designed to help your dog heal and live a healthier life. Red Recover emits red and infrared light therapy based on the same science that NASA developed, all in a soft, flexible housing pad powered by a convenient, rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Say yes to science and give your dog the care it deserves with Red Recover.
If If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where Inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
You're locked into the only platform truly dedicated to South Florida sports. This is the Miami Hurricanes Watch on the Sports Talk 305 network. Here's your host, Mike McCoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around with us throughout that last break. You're listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch with me, your host, Mike McCoy. That guy right there knows a lot about Miami Hurricanes football, recruiting, so on and so forth. Don't put him in a box, but I want to get to something really quick. Gabby Urrutia, thank you very much for joining us. How you been, man?
I'm good, man. I hope I sound okay. I'm using different headphones. Good.
Sound good. You sound good. Thanks for joining us, man. Gabby is going to be a regular on the show, right? For pretty much the rest of the season, or whenever he wants to come on, he's got the green light. So a guy with a lot of information, but this is not the first time Gabby's joined a show, right? When I was last year, I was with Slam Radio on Sirius XM channel 145, and he made a tweet that kind of got my attention, and I said, I got to get Gabby on air because this makes absolutely no sense. I want to talk about it really quick before we get into some football talk. So Gabby is of Cuban descent, Cuban heritage, just like myself, and the man does not like Cuban sandwiches. Gabby, can you please one more time explain what the heck goes into that? How?
I mean, I'm a pretty picky eater, first of all, so there's just a lot about a Cuban sandwich that's just really easy for me to dislike. Pickles, not a fan, just don't do it. Mustard, not a mustard guy. Honestly, just even like the sliced deli meat. I'm not a big sliced meat type of guy. There's just so much about it. The bread and the cheese works perfectly for me, but everything else is something that's just kind of outside of my lane. So yeah, it's probably a really bad Cuban food take, but it is what it is. I'm standing in the paint on it, and I will wear that.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So when you see Gabby around Canes games or so on and so forth, give him a little jab about it, because and here's one. Like I said, my mom's Cuban and everything. I can't stand croquetas. How about that?
See, that's borderline offensive to me. That makes me want to just log off the show. So, I don't know how serious you are about my Cuban sandwich take, but I think your croqueta take is significantly worse in my opinion. So I guess we both can hold that over.
No problem, man. Mondo, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate your continued support. Mondo is one of those ride or dies. Gabby, man, wanted to ask you, I think, an obvious question that a lot of guys want to know, a lot of Hurricanes fans want to know. After the loss, third straight for Miami, it looked better than they did 2 weeks ago against Middle Tennessee State, but it's still a loss, a big loss in terms of ACC play. How are recruits looking at the loss? How are recruits feeling about 3 losses in a row? I know this is a class that on the outside looking in, they seem to stick together. You see, tweets, hey, we got this, we're still coming, but you're the man, with the inside knowledge. So how do you feel about them sticking together as of October 11th?
Yeah, right now, honestly, I'm not super worried about it. And I feel like, outside perspective, it's so easy to make it seem like the walls are caving in on everything. But I think the reality is this is Mario Cristobal's first full recruiting cycle. I don't think he was selling a dream behind the scenes that would suggest that, these guys were expecting, anything major, in year one under this regime. I think he was very much, maybe, just telling them hey, look, this is going to be a process. We have some things we need to kind of overcome. Not stuff that's ever, spoken about publicly. But, I think that what these kids are buying in on is sort of the vision of the program, right? Like Mario Cristobal has a clear vision for the program, and he has a high expectation for what he wants. I think he's selling the fact that, you guys are my players, and, again, you want to win with what you got. You want to develop the roster with what you got. That's fine. But the reality is that, Mario Cristobal's recruiting these guys in to be his first full class. Mm-hmm. He got a few pieces at the end of the, late in that 2022 cycle, but this 2023 cycle is really all him. It's ranked number 10 in the country. And I think a lot of these guys see that, there is opportunity at Miami where they can come in and contribute early or be a part of what helps take the program to the next level. So yeah, I could definitely see just from, that perspective of looking in and being like, oh, Miami's lost 3 straight games. This is all going to blow up. And that's all fun and good. But this is his first class. And I think that's what's so important. If this was year 3 or year 4 and it just wasn't working, I could buy some stock in that. You know what? Hey, let's see if Francis Mauigoa is going to go visit Tennessee this weekend for Alabama, Tennessee up in Knoxville. But I do think the fact that, it is that first group, I think there is just a sense of buy-in that, it's not about the right now for those guys. Right. It's about the future. And I think that's what these kids are looking forward to.
That makes sense. And you actually said a couple of things there that I didn't think about, because I can knee jerk sometimes, but before I put it in a tweet, before I go fire off on a show, I sit back and I think about it. I personally was never thinking that, oh my God, this, that, whatever the third, because I trust Mario. I trust the man blindly. I trust the man, the staff that he's built, the types of guys he's recruiting, but I didn't think about the vision that he was selling these guys. Like, hey, look, it's not going to be now, but you guys are going to be part of the makeup, because you guys are the type of guys that I want around here. I liken that to, we were just talking with Frank Fort. Love that guy. Love that man. He's great. He was through the thick of the rebuild of the Butch years, and the guys, the greats, the guys like the Santana Mosses, the Ed Reeds, the Joaquin Gonzalez's, Reggie Waynes, you name them, Dan Morgan's. He was there for that, and he saw that. So I kind of liken this to that. I'm not saying that this year is going to mirror that, but the types of guys that Miami's, they're coming here regardless. They're coming here because, they're two and three. So what? Like, I know what I bring to the table.
Right.
And so the thing that I wanted to ask you was, you talked about these guys may be playing earlier, so on and so forth. Do you get the sense that they're coming in like, no, I'm not coming in to wait. I'm coming in to contribute now, because I see what that receiver room looks like. I see what that O-line looks like in their inconsistencies. I think I could do better on coverage-wise in a third and obvious when we can't get off the field on third down because we're first and second down all-stars. How do you feel about most or all of those guys thinking about them coming in to contribute right away?
Yeah, no, I think that's the mentality of a lot of these guys, right? Especially, so, the top half of the class. I think there's definitely some developmental pieces in there. And I think there's guys that understand, I need to spend a year or two in the strength program and, kind of get adjusted. But if I'm Francis Mauigoa, I'm licking my chops, because there's an opportunity to walk into, maybe not saying that he's gonna be the blindside left tackle. But, I think he can potentially slide into that right tackle spot and be a 3-4 year starter here. I think if you're Nathaniel Ray Joseph or Robbie Washington, I think you're looking at that receiver room and being like, I can bring something a little bit different than maybe these guys aren't having. And kudos to the receivers. I thought they took a big step forward. I've been one of the harshest critics. I'll definitely stand on the mountaintop for them when they do perform. I thought that they were great. I thought they answered the call against North Carolina. But I think there's a lot of dudes that are on this team that have to be looking at this roster and being like, all right, this is a team that's 2-3 right now. It's not like there's a bunch of future NFL players on there. And, maybe if I don't walk into a starting spot, I can crack the rotation, work my way in there. We're seeing what Nigel Kelly's doing, where, he's acclimating himself in there. I don't know how many people realize this, against North Carolina on Saturday, they pulled Akeem Messidor off the field and inserted Nigel Kelly. Yep. Like, that is a lot of trust. And that's the play that Nigel Kelly got, like the half sack where it was him and I think Corey Flagg. Like, go back, if you watch like the game tape of that, I saw it in real time. Like, Akeem Messidor was walking off, Nigel Kelly's walking on. I turned to David Lake and I'm like, they literally just did that. Like, what the heck is going on? He gets to the quarterback, so a lot of these freshmen, they can adjust and kind of get their way in there when they get there in January, the way Wesley and Nigel have. So a lot of these guys, again, maybe not day one, but I think a lot of them feel like they can contribute as first year guys, which, is important, especially early on. You want to stack elite players that can come in and play.
That's all music to Miami Hurricanes football fans' ears. And by the way, if you're just now joining us, Gabby Uridia, 247 Sports, you're listening to Miami Hurricanes Watch with myself on the 305 Sports Talk Network. Mike McCoy, Gabby Uridia, talking some Hurricanes recruiting after Miami's slide to start the season, 2-3, 3 losses in a row, 0-1 in conference play, going up to Virginia Tech. On Monday, yesterday, you probably were there. If not, maybe we're on Zoom. Coach was asked about, I'm not sure if it was you or it might have been Manny Navarro, about, younger guys playing. And I played it in the first segment, but I think it's worth mentioning again. And I think it's relevant to what we're talking about right now. So I just want you to hear again, because like I said, you're probably there, how Coach talked about the younger guys getting reps. And here's Coach Cristobal talking about that right now. We'll give the guys a little bit longer to pull it up, but just really quick, guys, let me know when you have it. Just let me know, and I'll go ahead and give it up. But the class you're just talking about right now. So Cyrus Moss doesn't come here from Mario Cristobal. Isn't named head coach. Neither's Nigel Kelly. Maybe Jaleel Skinner. I don't know.
Nope.
Trevante. No. Okay. Thank you for confirming.
No.
Trevante Citizen.
No.
Definitely not. Who else? I mean, the transfers are definitely not coming. And I made a point in the first segment that you look at the guys that are consistent contributors and guys that are the Akeem Mesidors. Coach spoke glowingly about him on Monday. And he came up and he said, look, we need we need more of those guys here at Miami. And that's the type of guy that Mario's going to recruit. That's the type of mentality that he's going to recruit. And that's the type of production you could expect out of a Mario Cristobal recruit. So this is just season 1. All right. And he's a transfer. So again, it's going to take some time. And Frank Ford talked about it. But here's that clip of Mario talking about the young guys that are going to be getting some more time. Sorry about that. Thought it was ready. But yeah, man, it was a class that was, and you guys can go ahead and roll it whenever you have it, and I'll shut up. But it was a class that was ranked like in the 50s or 60s when Mario was hired, and then they finished 15th in the country. So that in and of itself, we already knew that Mario Cristobal was a hell of a recruiter. And then it's just about getting the right pieces, everybody finding their own niche. And I just love, I think I asked you this during the game, or maybe it was pregame on Saturday. If you could just repeat it to the new audience here that maybe not have been listening pregame, in terms of a leader and in terms of a recruiting ambassador for the class, can you talk about who that is and why?
Yeah, to me, that's Ray Joseph. The top two. I mean, for us, the top 247 receiver out of Miami Edison, and I think a lot of it is just kind of. I mean, you were kind of talking about the DJ Dallas comparison, kind of like the vocal leader, the one that's going to rally the troops. I think that embodies Nathaniel Joseph so well. After he's been at every home game this year, he's been recruiting for them. After that Middle Tennessee State loss, he was kind of super even keeled. And should I stop?
You can go ahead and finish your thought, and then we'll roll it after you're done.
And I think Nathaniel Joseph is that guy that kind of gets everyone together. After that Middle Tennessee State loss, he was on Twitter saying, hey, we're still going to kind of get this thing rolling. We're going to keep this thing together. We're all locked in. And I feel very much like Nathaniel Joseph is that guy who's like sort of the vocal leader of the class, if you want to say that. I think Antonio Tripp has a I think he definitely has a say in that as well. But right now, to me, it's been Nathaniel Joseph.
And I think that's beautiful because it's a local guy. And I think the importance of a local guy being the leader for the recruiting class, I think that's a big deal because, we know the importance of keeping local guys that are really, really good players home, because there's nothing worse than turning on a game in the SEC and seeing a Teddy Bridgewater dominate, or not that he was in the SEC, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Ja'Cory Brooks over with Alabama, and it's like, well, damn it, these guys.
Dallas Turner.
We go on, and it's just frustrating to name the guys. But we got the link ready. Thanks, guys. Go ahead and roll it.
You mentioned Nigel Wesley. Who are some of the other younger players, such as Jaleel Skinner, who have really started to emerge as we approach the midway point of the season?
Well, I think you mentioned Jaleel right there. He's a guy that continues to get better and better. Great tight end room. Guys like Will Mallory, Don Momorelli, Elijah Arroyo, they've all done a really good job helping him. Khalil Brantley's done a really, really good job. I like to think that Colby Young is a young guy because he just hasn't played that much, right? Excuse me. I like to think Brashard Smith is another young guy. Only been in for a year plus and is coming on really, really strong. I guess it could go on and on because I know you guys probably view Cam and James as veterans, but they're only sophomores. So thought Leonard Taylor is a guy worth mentioning. Really played strong and getting better and changing his body and really committed himself to improvement. So I think guys like that have stood out. And Inez Cooper's going to be a great one. He really is. Trevante was on his way to being really, really good until he got banged up. But we see flashed in Isaiah Horton, challenged him this week to be accountable, to be trusted when it comes to game day. So we'll see what type of competitor we get tomorrow on the practice field, and sure could rattle off a few more.
And again, we played that in the first segment, but it was relevant to what we were Gabby and I were talking about right now. Younger guys that are going to be seeing the field, and the freshman class is committed right now, and others that will be committing can expect the same thing because Mario doesn't hold any punches. Who deserves to play will play. But I wanted to talk about this second wave that Mario mentions every now and then. He doesn't, bring it up often, but everybody was wondering about when is the second wave? When is the second wave? We're not going to get the second wave with 3 losses. Relax, calm down, it's coming. But can you give us a little insight about what you do know about this second wave without giving too much information away?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like specifically about a second wave. I think that's definitely some optimism, maybe just some, from Cristobal, just kind of saying, they're still working on plenty of guys behind the scenes. They're still, actively recruiting a ton of dudes. This class is not close to being over. I think I think more like, not really that like, oh, we're about to go on a string of, because that, that late June, July run was historic. I mean, really, like just in terms of the program and how that's been. I mean, me personally, I obviously haven't been doing this very long, but I haven't seen anything like that from Miami. So I think more so than just like, oh, we're going to go on 5 straight commitments or anything like that. It's more just, they are still recruiting a ton of dudes. They're still trying to, put the finishing touches on this class. There's 17 guys in there right now. I think there's room for about 7 or 8 more if it works out that way. And so I think that's more so what maybe he's alluding to with this whole second wave. Maybe they're optimistic kid would announce maybe sooner than he originally did. I think Samson Akinlola, the 5-star tackle out of Massachusetts, might fall into that category. I think some out there thought that, before, who was it that committed in like late July? I know it wasn't Connor Liu. It was another. I don't know. But some people. It was Monroe Freeling that I think he was committing in general.
Right.
They thought that he ended up committing to Georgia.
Right.
They thought that Samson Akinlola could have potentially jumped on board even before Freeling announced. So I think that at one point they felt really, really good about it. I mean, everyone saw those crystal balls rolling in. He's kind of hit the pause button on all that stuff. He plays on Saturdays.
Right.
So it's kind of tough for him to kind of get around. His open Saturday, though, November 5th weekend, Florida State weekend. I think that's going to be very telling to see if or where he ends up that weekend. So I think Samson Akinlola, cross your fingers as a part of that second wave. And then just kind of like the rest of the work that they're trying to do, to close out wide receiver, to get some guys on the defensive line, Reuben Bain, you got the Stanquan Clarks. You got the Micah Mays over at Palm Beach Benjamin, who they're definitely giving a nice hard look at. Tayshawn Lyons is a kid out in California. I mean, there's still so much left on the board. There's so much meat in the bone, so there's still a lot that they're trying to accomplish on the recruiting trail. So I think it's maybe more a testament to that.
This show's normally over at 9:00, but I got to ask you because we're talking about the future of Hurricanes football, and you mentioned the guy that I wanted to ask you about. I'm glad you brought him up. Reuben Bain is probably the Wesley Bissainthe of this class. What do you get from him? Because from what I've heard from people that are in the know, like yourself, he wants to win. He wants to see Miami win, and I get that, right? But he's also a legacy guy. How much of that is big on him, or is he just like, look, this is all business decision? What is your take on him, and maybe if and when he'll pop?
Yeah, I don't think this is a recruitment that's going to end, anytime soon, unfortunately, unless something crazy happens. I think he still has a couple of official visits in his back pocket that he hasn't really used. You mentioned Wesley Bissainthe. I mean, let's not forget how that recruitment kind of came down. It was really down to the wire. I think he committed on a Wednesday, and on Monday, the crystal ball forecast was all Florida State. I mean, there was a chance that was going to happen. Manny Diaz was on the verge of getting fired. They had just kind of, started bringing in Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal closed, which is a really big deal. Kind of closed. I think he committed like the day or the day after Manny Diaz got fired. It was wild, but it had already kind of been out there that Mario Cristobal's coming. Insane recruitment, but it was late. So I could see things playing out similarly. The school I'm watching is Alabama, man. I mean, I think in the eyes of, talent evaluators, obviously we saw the big junior year, the 29.5 sacks, the 49.5 tackles for loss. I think there was still something, that people kind of wanted to see from him, and especially how he would kind of, continue to develop as a senior. I think he's checking off all the boxes for these guys. We're updating our rankings tomorrow. I believe he's going to be a top 100 player in the country when that happens. So he's just on a steady incline, up and up and up. And, I think he's very big time. I'm looking at Alabama. I think Auburn's in there. He's going to spend this coming weekend up at Florida State as they host Clemson. So that's going to be a big weekend. But, Miami is home, and they're doing everything that they possibly can to keep him, in the 305. He is Dade County's top uncommitted prospect, and that's one that they feel like they absolutely need to have. And, after watching him, over the past few years, there's definitely no doubt in my mind that he could be very Akeem Mesidor-esque with maybe a little bit more explosiveness. I think the Akeem Mesidor role is definitely one they should be pitching to Reuben Bain, because he, obviously a guy further along in his development, but, maybe a little bit quote unquote undersized, someone that can play a little bit of inside and outside, has that high motor and a high IQ. I think, they are kind of displaying what Reuben Bain could potentially be in this defense, with some potentially, good, complementary pieces to that. So I think that they're, definitely a must get type of guy for Miami. I do think that they have a good chance. He was still good even after that North Carolina loss, and that he, again, another one that understands the process and how this wasn't going to happen in 1 year. He wasn't doom and gloom. He wasn't like, oh, Miami's not winning, this isn't for me. I do think that, they're going to have to take care of business eventually, kind of start showing some of that promise, which I think they will. But Reuben Bain is that dude for them. I mean, talk about, top of the board type of guy, name circled in red on the recruiting board. He is that for Miami, and they got to do what they got to do to make sure he stays.
Might as well close out the show with us, Gabby, if you don't mind, just a few more minutes. So I asked this to guys in recruiting circles just to see how they feel about it, because I get different answers all the time. I asked Larry Bluestein about it, and it was actually middle of the summer of 2020 that I asked him about it, because Miami was in the middle of the recruiting process with James Williams and Jake Garcia. Miami ended up landing both of those guys. The big time, the whale in the room. The whale was James Williams. So what I asked him, and what I ask you now, in terms of Miami and losing so many over the years, over the history of recruiting, they've lost a lot of local big time talent. Sometimes to interstate rivals, sometimes to Alabama, sometimes they go to the West Coast, right? So what do you think, in your opinion, is bigger for Miami to land? Do you think is landing the local 5-star national recruit, is that bigger or as important than saying to the country, hey, we can go out and get that big time quarterback that's being nationally recruited by everybody on the West Coast? What do you think is more important to a Miami program?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a preference thing, right? Like who is the 5-star local recruit? Are we talking Brandon Inniss? Is it a bigger deal to get a Brandon Inniss or a Jaden Rashada? I mean, I think that's totally up for debate. I think there's an argument either way. I do think that there's something about, you need to keep the elite South Florida players home. Like, you have to. They've gone out and they've performed well at other places. Again, I mean, Dallas Turner right now, in the current state of football, is the prime example that, he is a potential game-changing pass rusher for you. And then, but there's also a lot to Miami being able to go into California and be, Texas A&M and Oregon and LSU and Florida for, really who's probably someone that, for at least for us, may end up as a 5-star quarterback, by the time we expand that up to 32 guys. So, I personally like the national approach. I think the best of the best in the country do it. You need to be able to go to California to get a kid. You need to be able to go to Virginia to get a kid. You need to be able to go to Texas to get a kid. You need to be able to recruit the kids that are around your area. Alabama's doing that really well right now, keeping some Alabama kids home. So you got to do both really, really well. And I think that comes with time. I think that comes with winning as the program, continues and trends towards success. I think both of those things meeting in the middle is best case scenario. Right now, I'm a huge Brandon Inniss guy, man. If I had to make my choice, I think Brandon Inniss is just that type of dude. Not saying I would take him over Jaden Rashada. You need to have that quarterback, but man, if there's one guy that I can kind of cherry pick, like I feel like would significantly improve a specific room, I mean, Brandon Inniss is that kind of dude for me. So yeah.
Current Ohio State commit, and you can't blame them. They're doing their thing, putting wide receivers in the league. All right, their wide receiver coach, Brian Hartline, one of the best in the country, maybe the best at that position. So, Gabby, we're going to close out the show with one last segment that we like to call the 3 Real McCoys. And what it is, and feel free to join in. What it is MVPs of the week of college football, right? It could be a team, it could be a coach, it could be a player. It doesn't have to be a Miami guy. And so feel free to join us on that. But we're going to go ahead and get to that right now, the 3 real McCoys.
We're holstered and ready to unleash this week's Real McCoys. Time to hand out awards for this week's MVPs for the Miami Hurricanes. The Real McCoys.
Pretty cool. They did a graphic for me and everything.
Yeah,
So that's kind of cool. So I'm going to let you go first. Again, it doesn't have to be Canes centered. It could be anything that caught your attention that you thought was awesome. Last week, I think my first place Real McCoy was Mike Leach was interviewed by the sideline reporter who was engaged to be married. And that interview was hilarious. If you have a chance to check it out after the show, just Google or YouTube Mike Leach sideline reporter about getting married, whatever it was. It's like a minute and a half, and he was rambling on, but it was hilarious. That guy's awesome. So we're going to go from 3 to 1. I'll let you go first. Anywhere around college football, coach, team, player, something that stood out to you. Gabby Redia, what's your third place Real McCoy for the week?
That's interesting. You put me on the spot a little bit. I'll go with that Pitt running back. I mean, I think he had like 300 plus yards and like, what was it, like 4 or 5 touchdowns. Maybe it was 6. I don't know. But he just had an absolutely absurd game against Virginia. I think it was Virginia Tech, who Miami's playing this weekend. So naturally, Virginia Tech is gonna hold Miami to like 35 overall rushing yards. So I mean, that kid at Pitt was, definitely had one of those insane career days. So I will lean that way.
See. So rushing yards. Let's see. Oh, I clicked. Oh, Pittsburgh. Here we go. So the box score says they played West Virginia. They won 38-31, and he ran for. You said the Pitt running back.
Pitt running back against Virginia Tech.
Against Virginia Tech. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I think I'm clicking the wrong one. Hold on. Trying to put up the stats here.
McCoy. Real.
And yes, okay, here it is. So they played Virginia Tech. Here it is. Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech. Okay. Oh, yeah. He had 300. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm going to butcher it.
Abicanada or whatever.
Thank you.
Abicanada.
You did it. You did it. 36 carries, 320 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Holy, I totally missed that because I didn't catch that. Like, I was paying attention to the Alabama A&M game and like some other things, but that one completely flew under my radar. Good call. I'm going to keep it. This is probably going to be the only Canes Real McCoy, but I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go ahead and give 2 guys a third place tie, and I'm going to give it to Kobe Young, obvious reasons, Tyler Van Dyke, obvious reasons. So that's my Real McCoy. I'm going to go ahead for the first time, give it a tie. Third place Real McCoy for myself.
Real McCoy.
And we're going to go up to number 2. So, Gabby, again, it could be Kane-centric. It could be a coach. It could be a team overall performance. Who's your second place for the Real McCoy in last week of college football?
I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. Just absolute freak show. I mean, just doing insane things at Ohio State. Those guys just a revolving door of elite wide receiver play. Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, the son of NFL Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison.
Right.
And sometimes it's just natural, man. You're just born with it. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is a rising star, if not already in that star status in college football. So a name that, maybe Miami fans want to explore for their future fantasy teams.
There you go.
Real McCoy.
So this was easy for me. It was easy to put them on this list, but it was not easy as to put them 1 or 2. I'm going to go ahead and give the second place Real McCoy to the overall team performance for the Texas Longhorns, putting a 49-0 number on, and it should have been over 50 because I think they either missed an extra point or a field goal. 49-0 on a Brent Venables defense. Everybody's talking about culture changing at Miami. This is a guy, knows this stuff. What the hell's going on with Oklahoma's defense? Probably nothing. It's just, things. And not that Oklahoma had, a crazy defense to work with in years past because they were always giving up big yards in the air. But 49-0, the fact that A, you shut out an opponent like that, and B, it was a rival. I think people don't realize how important shutting out a rival like that is. It's a huge deal. So Texas Longhorns get second place Real McCoy for me, shutting out their rival in the Red River rivalry, 49-0.
Real McCoy.
First place Real McCoy, Gabby Rudia. Again, anywhere across the college football landscape, who's number 1? What caught your eye the most? I'm sorry, the last week.
I feel like these 2 things caught my eye the most. I mean, I'll cheat. I'll just go Tyler Van Dyke, throwing almost 500 yards. 3 touchdowns, career performance, second most passing yards in a game in Miami history, most pass attempts. Tyler Van Dyke, is he back? Is the U back? I don't know.
Real McCoy.
Good call. And I'm going to give the first place Reuben McCoy, again, overall team performance. But as a kid growing up watching college football, there are certain teams that I liked and I paid attention to. Michigan was one of them. Tennessee was one of them. Tennessee hasn't been themselves since they let go of Philip Fulmer, which they probably never should have done way back when. And things are looking up for that program. But the reason why they get my first place, Reuben McCoy, is because I don't have a problem with LSU as a program. They're one of those schools that I think are cool to watch, especially on a Saturday night when Death Valley's rocking. But I'm picking them as a first place Reuben McCoy, not because they beat LSU, but because I cannot stand Brian Kelly as a coach, because I think he's overrated as a coach. I don't care what the hell you did at Cincinnati. And when you had a chance to do something in Notre Dame with a star-studded roster, because let's be honest, Notre Dame finishes in the top 10 pretty much every year recruiting-wise. They cherry pick from all over the country. They get whoever they want. They clean up Indiana. I don't know how much cleaning up there too is in the state of football, high school-wise in Indiana, but you get what I'm saying. All that talent was never able to do anything. This is a guy that was quoted as saying famously, and I love this, when they played Alabama that first time down here in Miami, Amari Cooper's freshman year, he was quoted as saying that the team that makes the most mistakes is going to win. Get the hell out of here, Brian Kelly. That's a guy that's not going to last his whole contract at LSU. Horrible fit. I don't think he knows what the hell he's doing. I don't think he knows what he's in for. And the fact that he's in the SEC West, which is probably going to get realigned, but as it stands right now, you got to deal with A&M and Jimbo. You got to deal with Ole Miss and their
Lane
coach,
Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin, okay? And then Oklahoma's probably going to be in division. I don't know, but they're not going to – that guy's not going to – Gabby, I don't know if you heard this before, but if you didn't, you heard it here first. Kelly is not going to win 10 games in an LSU
that's a hot take.
Uniform. He's not going to win 10 games. I don't have a
polo.
bet. Yeah, polo, whatever the hell. He's not going to win 10 games there. They're going to fire him before that contract is over because they got money to burn there. And when they see what the hell did we sign up for, it's time's going to be up. And watch me. We'll see. They're at what right now? 4-2, 2-1 in the SEC. He's not winning 10 games there, Gabby. That's Tennessee Volunteers, my number one Real McCoy of the week.
McCoy.
I'm all for it. Go Vols, beat Bama.
Yeah, yes. Oh man, it's gonna be a hell of a game. It's gonna be, and Michigan is playing. They're playing Penn State. That's the top 10 matchup.
Manny Diaz in Penn State. Manny Diaz is gonna be one of my McCoys next week.
Oh boy, that game's at the Big House. It's a 12, if not 12:30 kickoff this Saturday at the Big House. Gonna have our eyes on that one as much as we can because I mean the Virginia Tech kickoff. I think it's a 12 or 12 o'clock, 12:30 kickoff. So, Gabby, man, I thanks for sticking around longer than we were expecting, but I really appreciate it. Again, everybody, if you're tuning in right now, he's going to be joining us every week talking about the latest and greatest that there is Miami Hurricanes recruiting. And anything else before you go, Gabby?
That's all for me, man. I appreciate you guys having me on and, look forward to being a part of the show.
Awesome, man. Everybody stay safe. Have a great week and go Canes.
That's this week's Real McCoys on the Miami Hurricanes Watch. You've been listening to the Miami Hurricanes Watch with host Mike McCoy on the Sports Talk 305 network. The Watch is mastered by Sean Stanley and Chad Shobe. Please subscribe to the Big O Radio Show on most platforms. Thank you for supporting the